And welcome back, all you kings, queens, and royal beings. This is Runeterra, episode 14. I'm Grandmaster Dan.
I'm Adam Edelman Munoz.
And I'm Stan Jarzewski.
Today we have a fun little thing lined up for you. We'll do our usuals before, but the thrust of today's episode, the main thrust, will be a deep dive, which is very fitting for the new region, Bilgewater. Its weaknesses, its strengths, our favorite cards, the hottest cards in more ways than one. And then, as always in the back half, I'll be memeing something up. But yeah, let's go ahead and break down this new meta, this Rising Brides meta. What are we seeing right now, Stan, in the ladders?
Yeah, so our big new mainstays are the quote-unquote new burn aggro. I think the real thing that's pushing that in is Noxian Fervor and the Imperial Demolitionist have both taken aggro to a spot where it can really, really sustain and keep up. I think the deck's going to slowly start fading out just a bit here soon. I'm not sure if maybe in like High Masters it's still doing really well in the meta there. The deck's by no means bad. It's still one of those ones that it's always going to do really well when its hands are good. But it is very answerable and does actually require a bit more thought to play than your typical just slam aggro deck. I think for all of you out there playing it, if you are attacking on turn 1, mull for your turn 1 cards. Throw everything away to get a turn 1 card.
Yeah.
Like, that seems like the most important thing with that deck. If you aren't doing that, like, really, don't look at anything else in your deck as being good, except for your turn 1 play. That's going to increase your win rate a lot, I feel like.
I think also one thing is I think the deck might actually be so good that it's teched against so hard that it gets like it loses a couple points almost, because I see so many decks now that they just have to slot in a ton of like some type of life gain or eschewing some points to make sure they can keep up to the aggro deck.
Absolutely.
I think we'll get to this in a bit, but I mean this kind of how metagames work. This is your good like level 0. This deck has no requirements of the opposing deck. There's nothing complex about the metagame. It has to be good around this. This is just counting to 20. So you build this deck, and then people have to react to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. That is how I find myself playing this deck a lot, though. And I like that it's true burn, too, of, like, really what you're counting to is you are counting to just the number of burn spells you have in hand. So a lot of times you're counting to, like, 14, and then, like, oh, cool, get excited, Mystic Shot, Decimate, is your end goal with it. So, I mean, again, like, counting to 14 in this game isn't that hard, or getting 14 damage in somewhere. So the fact that this has gone back to like more direct face damage burn is, I think, too, part of why it's a stronger deck again. And I think too, with burn moving to more creature focus, just like creature aggro, people weren't quite ready for the burn spells actual like abilities to face burn spells to face thing. So I think a lot of this deck's strength was in a bit of the surprise value too. And as that wears off, the game gets a little easier to play.
So Stan, let me ask you something about this deck. I've seen a bunch of variants of this deck. I mean, they all have the same like first 30 cards, but the last 10 there's some flex. What do you think is the best build of this deck? Are you in no champions? Do you want 3 Jinx or 3 Draven? Like, what do you think is the just, like best build of this deck at this moment? Because it may change, obviously.
Yeah, I still think it's best as the no champs version right now. I still think there's a little more value that can get eked out of it, and it's gonna get to a point pretty soon, I feel like, where that no champs version is gonna it'll fade out unless you have like a near perfect hand, essentially. Like, you'll hit a point where unless you really hit the nuts of just like damage turn for turn, you're gonna start like your win percentage isn't gonna tank, but it's not gonna be high enough to maintain like a tier 1 winning deck. Like, you might still be able to ladder with it, but it'll be slower going than it should, which I feel like once that happens is when you start putting back in a champ or two. I think you probably start with something like Darius because he's still over the top burn, and then it's probably going to hit a point, I feel like, where once this gets figured out, we lean back into that creature aggro again. And then once that happens, you go back to like Draven, because you're just all trying to kind of like value creature burn your opponents out instead of, you know...
What are you swapping Draven for in the no champion version?
Not Draven, Darius. So...
Yeah, no. Like, currently there's a no champion version running around. What are the 3 cards that are swapped out in lieu of Draven?
Not Draven yet. Darius first. You'd probably
definitely a no champion version.
Yeah. The champless
that's our
goes
current
first.
version. We're talking about like in the future when the everything goes face plan has been meted out of existence.
And I'm saying I've only played against the Draven version, so I'm literally just wondering what those 3 cards are.
Yeah, I mean, you probably get rid of the Draven for Darius first. I mean,
but
the thing
from
that's
the no
a
champion
champion.
version, Stan, now you need to listen to the question. Starting from the no champion version, if you want to change your deck up, what are you taking out?
Taking out probably a Decimate and like either one-ofs of a few of your burn spells or like 2 Decimates and something else for a Darius. And then...
Oh my god.
for Darius first, and then you start changing out to Draven as you add more creatures. So once you've taken out more burn spells and gone more creature...
We tried so hard, but we got it so far.
The answer is Static Shock, Dan. Let's get going on.
I
think we got it there.
Yeah, I don't think Static Shock's in there, but that's fine.
It
is in there.
Static Shock is in those burn decks, really?
Absolutely, yes.
Whoa. Okay. Interesting.
It's clear a blocker, 1 to face, draw a card.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean,
So that's the swap.
Those are the first things you take out, and now I think we've answered this question in any possible way.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've literally only seen the Draven version, or I've only played the Draven version. I've played against the non-champion one, but I can't tell what the difference is between the deck. I've never seen a Static Shock, but that's fine.
So now that we've talked about what's driving the metagame, like that's our level 0 deck. What are the level 1 decks?
Exactly.
What are we doing that are reactions to this burn deck?
Well, I also even wouldn't say Burn's not level 0 anymore. It was for like
not tier 0. Just like it's the first thing you do.
It's the starting
deck.
Yeah.
You build the easiest deck, and burn is always the easiest deck to build.
Right. What I would say is the best deck in the meta following that, and kind of what you want to do is Bannerman probably beats up on it the most. The current just like mid-range Demacia list is super strong. The addition of Badger Bear and it's what's it called?
Grizzled Ranger.
Grizzled Ranger, yeah. Like the combination of those 2 cards has given mid-range Demacia just so much staying power. Like this is a deck that when it curves off, it doesn't even feel beatable. Like it's so strong, has so much resilience, and it can just over the top people really, really easily. I think too, what's interesting about this is a mid-range deck that I feel like even has pretty strong legs against control at this point. Like their curve is fast enough to aggro out control, and especially with like the addition of Loyal Badger Bear, 4 damage on 3 is getting to a point where control's going to start having trouble. A lot of their units are at that premium 4 toughness where we've
talked about this before at some length. Anything with 4 health is good.
Yep. And with some of the new tech too of like, some of these decks can run a single copy of Unyielding Spirit, or mostly that is probably the biggest thing that's keeping this deck in like if they cast that on the right thing, they're going to outrace the control deck at all times because their one big unit is now able to, consistently swing.
Okay, I have to be honest. For a card I've never lost to, I hate that card far too much. I mean, I've had games where I've had to kill my opponent with like Anivia attacks for 2 damage from her ability and nothing else every turn because of Unyielding Spirit, and it's just like... The card's probably acceptably balanced, but man, I have an irrational hatred of that card.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good. I like it.
But I do feel like that's something, and this is probably going to get nerfed soon. I said it really does seem like there's no mistakes in the like Bannerman list. There's nothing that it has a terrible matchup against. And again, like on curve, it's probably beating almost everything else.
Yeah.
From there, we have a lot of the same control stuff that we used to have. A lot of the Karina controls still there. People have been tucking in Vi to Karina control as kind of its new upgrade, kind of giving it another threat.
Vi is so good in that list.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Giving them like a new middle of the road threat too to kind of help push through is real strong. Heimer Vi has come up now too, so Heimer's kind of back in the meta as another nice little mid-rangey late game deck. Karma Ezreal got some new tools, is pretty similar, but has things like the Eye of the Dragon now that helps out. And Gotcha,
meditation.
obviously, has done a lot of work for all the P and Z decks. From there, the only really like new things that we're hitting is like there's the Bilgewater Bannerman package, where you can kind of run between just like a Misfortune. Sometimes you can splash a little more Bilgewater stuff if you want, depending on how much you're willing to play with your Bannerman odds. But it's essentially just a Bannerman variant. A lot of these are still running Quinn to really like take advantage of the Scouts package, but I do feel like this deck's probably gonna also slowly fade out once its surprise factor of how Scouts work isn't as prevalent in the meta of like people just being like, cool, I know how to play against Scouts now. And like these decks are probably just gonna funnel into the Bannerman thing and maybe keep some of that as like a side plan. Because I mean, essentially, what I feel like this deck really is it's just the Bannerman deck, but a little bit worse for a slightly different strategy. Like they're kind of filling the same role in the meta. Just the Misfortunes deck can go off a little more aggressively, but it's a lot more, a lot more hand dependent for the deck to be good. The only real Elusives deck to stick around and is slowly fading out is the kind of standalone variant where you're trying to combo off with your like Solitary Monks or Zeds and a standalone and a Relentless Pursuit. But in the current meta, with the amount of control and life gain and ways to keep a deck like that at bay, and aggro decks that can go under it where you can't afford not to do anything till turn 3, that deck's really kind of fading off. And even when I was playing it, it really did feel like it's kind of draw the nuts or play a grindy game and like hope you get there.
Yeah.
Some other new fun.
The nut package really only requires a few cards, right? So is there maybe a different build of that deck that keeps the kind of OTK core, but then does something completely different with the rest of the deck?
I'm not.
Something completely different.
I'm not sure. I think the only thing that might be, like, the only spot it has for added resiliency is maybe removing the Fioras. I've seen a version of this deck that's really fucking cool. That was you Unyielding Spirit the Zed, and then you
Wait, does that mean your ephemeral Zeds can't die?
Yes.
That's hilarious.
That's pretty
So
funny.
the ephemeral ones still die actually until the Zed flips. If the Zed flips, the ephemeral ones will stop dying as well. Yeah. But you Unyielding Spirit the Zed, then you Dawn and Dusk the Zed, and those Zeds don't die.
Oh yeah, that's pretty cool.
And then every turn you're swinging with 6 Zeds.
That's
your game plan.
That's cute.
It's a silly all-in version, but I love it. But yeah, that by the way is not a way to add resiliency though, I guess. So there's that as well.
I mean, so to getting to Adam's point about do we take the package elsewhere? I've seen a Lux Karma list that uses standalones.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of works.
It's
how I'm thinking.
somewhere between. Yeah, it's like somewhere between a control list and a mid-range list. Like it can definitely go over top of a lot of stuff, but also it's just like a super obnoxious. It's like a really annoying deck to have to play because there's so many weird things you have to do sometimes.
Yeah, but I think.
Yeah, go for it.
I was gonna say, I think Unyielding Spirit is probably the best new card for giving this deck any form of resiliency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. The all-in plan.
Yep.
Another like notable deck, one that we actually played on our Twitch stream.
Yep.
Is Big Slamoo, which is basically just keg control.
Yeah,
last week we accidentally made a real deck, a tier 1.5, tier 2 deck.
And we have to apologize to our listeners here. Our memes are meant to be the highest grade quality of memery, and this was something else.
This was accidental genuine gold. And so we apologize for accidentally making something good.
Huh. Yeah, the actual listed version of this deck really just doesn't go as all in on the Riptide Rexes and Ladroses, instead plays Glimpse Beyonds. I think that's wrong. I think Slamoo is just too good.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like we had trouble drawing cards. Weirdly enough, we have TF, we have
honestly,
salvage.
Yeah. Like honestly, if I was gonna play this deck for real, like if I was gonna turn the Big Slamoo into a real deck, I would just swap out like one Riptide Rex for one Ledros, because I think that combo of Dreadway into Ledros is a lot better than the combo of Dreadway into Rex.
So,
but
what I found kind of interesting, I played it a little bit more after the stream too, and I was playing against a Yasuo deck, looking at him still having 5 cards in hand, and what I feel like is really nice is that the Ledros combo is your go-to kill, but so I had a Dreadway, I had a Ledros and a Riptide Rex in hand, and they had a fairly full board, and I know that there's always a chance of them burst, stunning everything, making a really big Fey Blade Twirler, and just killing me out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So where they had to think maybe cast one Deny the whole game. So casting the Ledros is just going to get the Ledros denied or get the Dreadway bounced. But Riptide Rex has the added flexibility of, well, you can't counter all of the cannon barrages. I can make sure some of your stuff dies at least by playing this, and then if you don't have an answer, I still probably win the game now.
That's true.
I guess the secret text on Riptide Rex of Screw Ionia is pretty nice.
Yeah, no, that's why I really feel like a nice 2-2 split on those. And I guess at the end of the day, I'm still agreeing with you, Dan, that probably a 2-2 split in our deck would have been better. 2 Riptide, 2 Ledros. Yeah. But the Riptide Rex really does have some strong, there are regions that it is really strong against.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything that can't immediately remove your, can't fast speed remove your Dreadway, just cast the Ledros, go. You got it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, that deck's still surprisingly powerful.
Yeah, it's also really well teched, just naturally teched against the burn deck, just because you have all those. We were like, oh, we can't lose the burn, so we just put 9 life gain spells in there.
Yeah,
and you gain extra life off your kegs, so it's pretty solid deck. I was blown away. But yeah, definitely check us out on Twitch, twitch.tv/Stanjaro. We'll be doing more there.
Yep. And then I think a bunch of other things that have started coming up are a bit more still in the experimental phases here. We have the Burn Swain lists. We have people trying out the Swain Sejuani list, Swain Gangplank, Sejuani Gangplank, all those people with pretty similar level conditions. Draven Spiders is still around. They Who Endure is still a pretty strong deck that's got some minor upgrades going into this new meta. Things like the Neverglade Collector being a pretty good Aristocrats tool. Blighted Caretaker being a nice little Aristocrats activator. So there's some new interesting things being teched into some older decks.
Yeah.
You can try out your Milkai strats, your Twisted Fate Ezreals, your even
Deep Nautilus.
Yep, Nautilus.
The sea monsters.
Yep.
I also think Deep Nautilus is moderately likely to become kind of close to viable soon. I mean, it's a bit soft to some of the middling decks in the metagame, right? It's actually fine against burn aggro and and it's pretty decent against other control decks other than Karma Ezreal, but it just has some trouble with anything mid-rangey.
Yeah.
But,
I think what it's
as the metagame develops, I think it's moderately likely to become better and better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to need teching and teching and teching until it finds its spot. I feel like what's really difficult for it and what will always be its limiting factor is that it has an abysmal combo matchup. It's just like a bit too slow to knock out any deck that has like a, well, I'm going to probably kill you on turn 10, so you have to end it before then, or,
Yeah.
establish enough of a board. Like, maybe it gets to a point where if they can hopefully, like, keep themselves alive and good, they have, like, vengeances ready to go or something like that, but then, that still makes them really weak to, like, Karma Ez. That's not enough to beat them. But yeah, I do think that the deck will definitely be teched into a nice tier 2 home at some point, once, like, it's really refined and the meta establishes itself a bit more. But yeah, I think that's really most of what's going on here. Still a bit of experimenting. We're still only like, this is the second week of the new expansion now?
Yeah.
So,
Second week.
yeah, we're not quite in the wild, wild west anymore, but, there's still a lot of experiment to go. And the only deck that I feel like should be mentioned, and it's my favorite because every time I see someone playing against it, I go, oh, cool, I'm probably winning this game. So people play it more. Slotbot. Also, so that someone could make the Slotbot deck good. That card is fun as hell.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, that's most of the meta right now.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, that's like it seems like the meta's in a fine spot. There's about 6 or 7 like really high 2 decks. You can probably get to like top gold with nearly anything you string together as long as you know what you're doing. So I can definitely appreciate that.
Yeah.
I guess now we can kind of do a little deep dive splash. There's a no running sign posted here because we're going into Bilgewater, baby. We're doing a deep dive into Bilgewater. Yeah, let's talk about a little bit of everything. But let's start with their strengths and their weaknesses. Like overall as a set, what are they trying to do? What are they good at doing? What are they not so good at doing? And what are we looking to pair them with because of that?
So this region is super interesting because this is probably the most diverse region we've gotten.
Even more so than Shadow Isles.
I would say so, and not as like
Shadow Isles is flexible, but it's not diverse. Everything in Shadow Isles is
that's
a
fair
general theme.
Yeah.
It's like things die in Shadow Isles. Your things, their things, things die.
Yeah,
that's true.
Shadow Isles versatility comes from value.
Yeah, that's true.
Bilgewater's versatility comes from just, I guess, because they're pirates, they just threw a ragtag group together and said, "Take to the high seas." Yeah.
Yeah, this is a very ragtag group.
But in fairness to the designers, Bilgewater does have some actual clear strengths and weaknesses. And at the top of that list of strengths is pings.
Yes.
Bilgewater does
true.
1 damage to anything, anytime it wants.
Yeah, pretty
You've
much.
got Warning Shot to damage the Nexus, Parlay to damage a unit and the Nexus. And you've got Make It Rain, the mother of all ping spells.
Yeah, no kidding.
And even topping out that list, you've got our big friend Riptide Rex.
Yeah. the big pinger himself.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that's good, and that's pretty good in this meta right now. I mean, like we definitely saw Make It Rain is insane. It's probably one of my favorite cards from this. From this region. For
Make
sure.
It Rain is a hella fun card, and
Yeah.
going along with that ping strategy, their pings get even stronger due to the nice little stacking of powder kegs mechanic. I think that is definitely one of the biggest strengths of this region. That almost no matter what you're playing, you can find some use for powder kegs. They're a really, really surprisingly versatile tool. I remember when I first looked at these, really thinking I don't know how good that is, but it ends up being like a free body on board that either draws removal, saves you life because your opponents have to attack into it, or just makes your area of effect damage better, which is its best case scenario, and lets you swing the board immensely in your favor. They are pretty solid. I think most of the cards with deep come from this. I think there's only 1 card outside of Bilgewater that actually has deep. So, if self-mill for anything other than deep ever becomes a thing, this is going to be kind of the region to go to for it. It has a lot of good toss cards to get you there. I mean, again, there's nothing to do with that right now besides going deep, but this is the region you need to use your deep strategies.
I mean, but and alongside that, this region's also fairly good at drawing cards, right? I mean,
yes, that is
no
very
matter what,
true.
and not just in like the control sense of getting solid card advantages. There's a lot of variants of drawing cards in this deck which work very well. I mean, you've got cards like Pool Shark and Pick a Card, which are good for aggressive decks or mid-rangey decks trying to burn through their deck and find new stuff. You've got some better controlling card draw like Salvage and Plunder. Twisted Fate's just good.
Yep.
Right, as a general rule, there's just this deck, this region has a number of options to find what it needs.
Yeah. Yes, and then also this is the region that introduced us to the drawing your opponent's cards. So
Pilfered.
things like Pilfered and where is he at? Black Market Merchant, and then I think this is the where is the card that takes a card from your opponent's hand? Did that end up in a different region somehow?
I think that's Sleight of Hand.
Sleight of Hand.
Yeah.
Not an amazing card because of how conditional it is, but still a notable strength. Plays into that notable strength of the region.
Yeah. No, yeah, there's a lot of really good cards draw. There's like 3 of them that I would actually play and have played and will continue to play.
Yep.
Yeah.
And,
So what else? There's as we've talked about, there's some great finishers. I'm looking at you, Street Shark, Honorary Street Shark, Riptide Rex, but also like Nautilus is obviously a very good finisher.
Nautilus and Shipwreck Quarter and the Dreadway is not. I mean, not only is it a solid like combo finisher with Ledros and things like that, it also just is a good control card, right? It's a solid body that draws you another card.
Yeah.
I mean, even for aggro, you've got the Siren and Misfortune, both of which are pretty solid ways of saying, hey, I'm going to close this game now.
Yeah, I'm just going to combo finish you. Yeah, that's true. In a way, the Dreadway kind of makes all your other cards finishers, which is, that's a beautiful little helper.
Oh,
Helper
Indeed.
finisher.
So this region does have some notable weaknesses, though.
That's good.
Chief among them is its inability to answer anything big.
Right.
It has one card that kills anything with more than like 3 health, and I guess it's also got Riptide. You've got Scrapshot and Riptide, neither of which I'm particularly excited to add to my deck.
Yeah. Well, you should rethink the whole adding Riptide to your deck, but sure, okay, that's fine. Yeah, no, but they definitely do anything more than I think 3 health. You're right. Yeah. It's pretty brutal.
Yes.
Other notable weaknesses of this, I guess, Devourer of the Deep depths sometimes can hit big things, but also you can remove the Devourer.
Yeah, pretty easily.
So other notable weaknesses of this region, give me a second. I had an answer and that just fell out of my head. Evasion, I remember now.
Rip.
This region has a decent amount of direct damage, but after the board is stabilized, you're not usually going to be getting any more damage with an aggressive Bilgewater deck.
True. It's absolutely true. Yeah, they're kind of a weird. Now that I'm looking at it, they're kind of a weird. It's just because like. I guess I'm used to like Magic colors. It's kind of weird to be like, hey, this region's good at sweeping small things, and card drawing, but like nothing else. Like it feels like just a little bit of Izzet, and like that's it.
It's like
it's
Izzet
really
if you
weird.
weren't allowed to have Lightning Bolt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's really weird, but it's good though.
Yeah.
I definitely like the way that it's set up.
Yeah, as much as I like MF for finishing games, that's most of the direct damage of an MF deck is MF herself.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, I think that leans into what how you pair with this region is its versatility just comes kind of more to like what is your game plan. So I feel like Bilgewater can pretty much be paired with anything. It just depends on your game plan, and that's the thing that I think is kind of best about this region is that you know more about what Bilgewater cards are being played based on what region it's paired with. If you see
Absolutely.
Ionia, you know they're leaning into their card draw and spells. If you see Noxus, you are probably going aggro or Swain, I guess. Actually, sorry, I don't know what they're doing with Noxus right now, but I'm guessing it'd be something with Swain and Gangplank.
And sometimes Swain Gangplank, sometimes it's just you're taking the low to the ground Noxian burn spells to try to end the game.
Yeah, buff them up a bit. But you know, Freljord, you can go Sejuani. You can also just go like general, kind of beefy dudes. Shadow Isles, you're going either mill or...
You're going deep, brother.
You're going deep. You're definitely going deep. I guess the question from there is, are they going mill or not?
Right.
And then, if you're paired with P&Z, you're just making the P&Z spells better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
basically, every other region can help you cover Bilgewater's weakness as well, which is a good thing.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I feel like in a way it's almost like you're picking your other region and then you're like, do I need to add in the Bilgewater stuff? Like, it's like, to me, Bilgewater is the helper region right now. Probably like one of the bigger helper regions.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fair.
Shore up.
With the exception of like the Nautilus deck, the Bilgewater is going to be your secondary region.
Yeah, that's like probably the biggest bilge build around. Wow, that's a fun.
So while we're here, let's talk about how you play Bilgewater primary and Bilgewater secondary.
Yeah.
So Bilgewater primary, there's obviously the Nautilus strategy, right? You take all your sea monsters, you go deep, and you take all the toss synergy to make it happen.
Deep. Yeah.
The other Bilgewater primary strategy I've seen utilized is a very aggressive one, right? You have MF, you have
Fizz.
Bunch of cheap dudes. Fizz plays into this well, though I haven't seen a Fizz deck make its mark yet. Things like Jagged Butcher.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of ways for Bilgewater to be aggressive. So and often it will just involve attacking because you don't have a lot of burn. So it's not just aggressive; it's aggressive and creature based. So I guess we know why that's not showing up right now because you've got Demacia showing you how it's done. But
yeah, beefier.
The point being that strategy exists somewhere, and there is a metagame where you want the lower to the ground options, and Bilgewater could theoretically take that spot.
Fill that role.
Or
yeah, absolutely.
Get paired with Demacia, right? We actually have seen some of that with the MF Scouts deck, right?
Yeah, the MF Doom Scouts, exactly.
And if you need to lean a bit memeier, Bilgewater as a primary region can be your milkshake deck, where you take their
That's
milkshake,
true.
you drink
That's
their
fair.
milkshake.
Though, is it really fair to call Bilgewater the primary region when in Rally the primary region is whatever your opponent is playing?
Ooh, that's fair. But
yeah, exactly.
In this milkshake meta, everyone's playing take your milkshake. So you're taking their milkshake, they're taking your milkshake.
Oh God! Wait, can you draw your opponent's pilfered goods?
Oh shit!
You can. No, don't
The game just comes.
Play your opponent's pilfered goods.
The game just comes down.
You steal from their deck, but I don't know how Riot codes their game.
Yeah. Well,
the game just comes down to how many pilfered goods can you play this game, and then you just draw your opponent's whole deck.
Yep.
It's like Yu-Gi-Oh
like
shit.
it.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
Believe in the heart of the pilfered goods.
So that's its primary, and we've kind of already touched a bit on its secondary, but yeah, I mean it's really just like shoring out. I mean, I think in particular right now the best example of that's Make It Rain.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Make It Rain, like kind of the keg package of like Dread Deck Hand, Make It Rain. What's it? Petty Officer.
Yep.
So Bilgewater secondary can help you cover weaknesses you have, especially to low to the ground creatures because of the strength of cards like Make It Rain and kegs.
Yep.
The other thing Bilgewater secondary can do for you is draw cards because, as we said, Bilgewater is good at this. You can add Twisted Fate. Zap Sprayfin is a card I somehow managed to forget when we were talking about this earlier, but
which is a fantastic card.
That's a lovely elusive card that costs effectively 3 and draws you a card.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty insane.
Yes, I would like 6 copies of Shadow Assassin in my deck. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly.
For real.
Yeah. I mean, that's like, to me, that's the best I think probably the it might not be the best card in this set, but probably one of my favorites to just kind of display what Bilge is all about is Twisted Fate, because he literally does like a little bit of everything.
Absolutely, and Bilgewater does a little bit of everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, card game, so.
Oh yeah, actually, I didn't even think about that. It's like meta. It's meta shit. So what are our favorite? What are, well, maybe not favorite because that's pretty obvious. What's our best and worst cards in this set? What are we seeing?
I feel like no one's gonna be surprised when we talk about Make It Rain, Twisted Fate. So I'm gonna let those ones kind of sit in the category of their own and talk about other cards that are great from this region.
I agree with that. Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
I'll
skip like the champs, I think, too.
Yeah, I'm a control player, so I'm a big fan of the Dreadway. It sets up finishes, it generates value, it just does everything you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What about you, Stan? What's your best card of the set, excluding Championes?
I mean, honestly, Treadway deckhand, sort of instead of the control setup, the more mid-game, early game setup, this card just does so much as a nice little 2/2/2. Like just making a powder keg, you're gonna get value off this card, beyond its 2/2/2 stats no matter what. Whether it's setting up a Make It Rain, blanking an attack from something that, is eating your powder keg, blanking a removal spell because it's eating your powder keg. Like, you're getting some type of value, sometimes like a 2-for-1, out of this Dreadway deckhand, and that's pretty insane for a 2/2/2 at common. Like, this card is so useful.
That's true, yeah. For me, I mean, I think people would usually like, oh, he's just gonna say Riptide Rex. It's like, yeah, but I think just to drop the meme for a second, probably my go-to or my favorite is Abyssal Eye. I would honestly, there's a solid chance I'd just play a 5-mana 3/3 that Nexus Strike draws you a card that's elusive, but also the fact that it turns into like a 6/6.
Yep.
A 6/6 elusive deep. Draw me a card every time it hits. Like, I will play this. I love drawing cards and I love hitting face, so this does both of them.
All right.
Yeah, those are probably some of our best. What about some of our stinkers of the set, or maybe it's disappointed us, or we just aren't seeing it?
All right, I gotta say my least favorite card of this entire region is Golden Narwhal. It's not even that it's bad, though it is. It's that, where do you want to play this card?
Yeah.
Its stat line is unimpressive. I guess it's got 4 health, but whatever. Yeah, it's elusive, but it's vulnerable, so your opponent can always choose to kill it. There's never a scenario where I think this card actually does something on the board effective.
Well, you're missing like Leviathan Tribal. Adam, this
doesn't have a tribe,
goes
Stan.
in your Ionia deck with Cloud Drinker and the other card.
Cloud Drinker.
It
Okay,
goes
so
in the
Whale
Play All the
Tribal?
Whales deck. Huh?
Whale Tribal.
Yeah. Not saying that's good, but that's where you play this. And the other thing, Adam, is you don't play this card. Your opponent plays this card because you play Hunting Fleet.
I guess. But why was this card collectible?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because I don't know. Riot's weird sometimes.
All I'm saying is, like, if the best version of this card is when someone else is playing it, that's not a good place for this card to be.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Yeah, I do agree that this card is kind of in a weird spot. I don't really think it I don't think it should be buffed or changed much from what it is. I think just it's a card that should sit around, and if it ever finds a home, like, let it. I feel like this card is in an interesting design space because, like you said, it kind of beats itself on its elusive thing by being vulnerable, but maybe there's some time later on where, like, there's a good enough buff synergy or something that really makes this type of effect what you want.
It's a walking disaster. Oh, it's a
Yeah,
swimming
I mean,
disaster.
it's the kind of card where the 4 health means it can take buffs well, except that a weakness of Bilgewater, which we somehow forgot to mention, is that Bilgewater doesn't have buffs. What you see is what you
That's
get on these
true.
cards, except
It
for, I
has,
guess,
like,
Deep,
Yeah.
kinda.
It has like deep and pocket aces are pretty much its only buff spells. And yeah, pocket aces isn't like a card you really want to be playing.
And in
Wait,
the buff,
okay.
in the regions with buffs, right, you have better things to be buffing.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, no. Like I said, but who knows if there's something in this card's design space that comes out later? I mean, like, I don't know, would making it a 3/3/4 make it too good? Maybe. Who knows? Like, I feel like it's a card. Just the elusive tag, as we've seen in the past, has always been on the watch list. Always been something to worry about.
Yeah, I'm not sure I
so,
want this buffed either. I just, like,
Yeah,
it's just not good.
Yeah, I don't think I want to buff.
absolutely.
Is Dreadway Deckhand? Did she get promoted into Jagged Taskmaster? Is this like another small story element? Because they look almost identical.
Different tattoos. That's just a
Are-
very...
Oh,
that
yeah.
hairstyle's just in Bilgewater this season.
Yeah, it is subtly different tattoos. You're right. Yeah. Okay. Yep. What's my down? What card am I most down on? I'm gonna say Monkey Idol, and the only reason I say this is because it makes you think that you can make a good Aristocrats deck, but you still can't do it yet, so stop trying. But it like traps you into thinking
Oh,
you
Dan,
can do
have
it.
I not showed you the newest version of Sharks?
You have not.
It's surprisingly good. I'll show you that list.
That sounds like loser talk to me. Surprisingly good sounds like loser talk. Like
No,
if I
it's-
don't see Swim playing it and like ranking up to Masters 5 with it, then I don't really
Dan,
trust it.
you've got to. You remember my default for decks I make is terrible, so surprisingly good is like many orders of magnitude better than my regular decks.
Right, exactly. Which again, you're not selling your point here. I'm telling you, Monkey Idol's a trap right now. You've got to wait, and that's why it's my worst card. You're just going to have to be patient with the Aristocrats deck. It is not good. So yeah, that is my worst card set.
All right, Stan, you actually know how to play this game. Tell us what the actual worst card in this region is.
It's Smooth Soloist because it costs 7 and does nothing.
We already knew that was the worst card. that's like
How
a
did I forget that
freebie.
card existed?
Yeah, but see, but I'm mad at this card for more reasons than that. I'm mad 'cause it's called Smooth Soloist and it's not playing jazz. Like that makes me mad. This card should very clearly be playing jazz based on the name and based on the fact that it costs 7 mana and does nothing. And
Stan,
that's the real reason why
Stan, I've known some jazz musicians. The sound of coins falling into a purse could be jazz. You don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, if we're gonna do it based off a combination, like a convex combination of mana cost, rarity, like wild card rarity, and just like effect, Mind Meld might be up there too. Eight
Mind Meld
mana
is-
epic, slow,
Oh, yeah.
to set all of your allies' power and health to the number of spells you play this game.
it's
I'm-
definitely
I'm
up
not
there.
seeing that. That's really bad.
Yeah, I mean, you need to cast like what? Probably 6 or 7 spells before this is any good.
Yeah,
And
but
you also have to somehow
that's
keep all of your small
manageable.
creatures on the battlefield. This is a terrible card.
You know,
I
it's
feel like.
the problem is the combination of the needing a high density of spells and needing board control. But I didn't want to put this.
Yes.
I thought about this. I didn't want to put it on my list because I can at least see the deck you're trying to make with this, right?
Yeah.
Again, this sounds like this is it's like the monkey thing. It's like the Monkey Idol thing. Like
Nah, the
it's a
deck,
trap.
The meme
It's a
deck.
trap card.
Dan, we owe people a meme deck suite, so you know. The meme deck is
Yeah.
We actually-
3
okay.
Prowling Cutthroat, a couple more cheap elusives.
Well, I
fun
found
ton
out
of
what
spells
meme I'm
and
going to be
mind
making in
melds.
like 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, actually, I've got this. It's Mind Meld. It's Slot Bot.
All right, wait. Let's stop talking about this because this is literally going to be my meme in 5 minutes. So let's go on to things we'd like to see from this region, and I will mysteriously not be talking for the next 5 minutes as I'm building this deck. And so what would we like to see from this region?
All right. So, looking at this region, I actually kind of like the diversity of strategies it has and how they fit together nonetheless. I would like to see some way of making it so that you have a reason to. Like, there's a very light elusives package in this region, and I feel like it's not supported sufficiently. You know, you've got Fizz and Prowling Cutthroat, and I guess theoretically Golden Narwhal is supposed to be part of that package. And then maybe someone wants Abyssal Eye in that deck. I'm not sure. Like, you've got a bunch of like okay elusives, and then nothing to do with them except for play them and swing and hope that wins. I don't want buffs because I think that regions having something going on, like having defined weaknesses, is useful. But I think what I want is some crossover between the elusive and the scout package in this region.
No!
No, not an elusive scout, Stan. Just like a way of making it so that you can utilize both strategies. You know, I mean, Misfortune is kind of there, but you know, a spell which grants elusive or scout to something. You know, it doesn't need to be a numerical buff, but just a keyword buff.
For one round.
Okay, fine. For one round, grants elusive or scout. But yeah, it's something that gives you a good swing turn in those decks. You know, something that gives you just a bit more cohesiveness to the region.
Yeah. Interestingly, like, I'm very much on the elusive cards they put in. I really like what they did with them. It does kind of suck that a lot of them are not in the spot where they're really like playable right now.
Yeah, I mean that's my issue, right? You can't just you can't have the balanced elusives region and then Ionia and just say, oh, Ionia is the good elusives region, this is the bad elusives region. That doesn't work.
Yeah, well, if what happens though is, I mean, like, if you make the elusives here any better, you make the elusives in Ionia a lot better. And that's sort of the tricky balance that I think by making all of the elusives here either like mediocre or the elusive kind of being a secondary use case, like
Abyssal Eye and Zap.
Exactly, yeah, are good, but they don't go in an elusives deck. Like they don't work with that strategy. So that was really smart on their part for not, you know, just even based on how much I've played the deck, like, anything elusive coming out, I have to look at and be like, okay, is this good? Is this good? No, it's not. We're okay. Because just elusives can be so oppressive in the meta.
But like I said, that's why I want crossover with the other packages in the deck rather than rather than just raw buffs to the elusives. Another thing that they could do is try to cross the elusives over with one of the other packages in the region, like the card draw package.
Yeah.
Right? An elusive that got 1 power every time you drew a card. I mean, it's a bit scary, but it also would be interesting for this region, right? It would play differently than the other decks while still utilizing things this region does.
Yeah. I think what I'd be most interested in going forward with this region is probably a bit more sea monsters more than anything else. Just giving that a bit more legs to stand on. Yeah, because the sea monsters right now, the lists end up honestly getting to a weird point where you're running like 2 Devour, 2 or 3 Abyssal Eye. A lot of them are even cutting like the Beast Below. You're running like maybe a Shipwreck Hoarder, maybe none, maybe 2 because it's still in like an experimental spot. And the thing is, like, the deep deck ends up really just being hold on to all of your sea monsters, play them all once Nautilus has hit the ground, and everything else was just surviving till you hit deep and played Nautilus. Like, the sea monsters package isn't really all in on the sea monsters. The sea monsters are just a thing you slam at the end.
So you want something that lets you play sea monsters a bit differently?
Yeah, I think maybe even like maybe just some cheaper sea monsters, which is sort of like a flavor loss probably, but you know,
I don't know. You could flavor them as smaller, but still terrifying things. I mean, like the kind of fishmen.
Yeah, sure. Like go Cthulhian with it, maybe.
Instant 5.
Yeah.
Iba.
So you can whatchamacallit, like maybe a little bit of that. Things that are like that are sea monsters that get some triggers, or kind of not necessarily accelerate the deep game plan. I think like Dredgers is already good enough for that, but I don't know. Dredgers is pretty close to like what I would want for this, but some things rounding out the curve from from the 2 to 4 range that give the deck some more interesting things to do.
Maybe utilizing the deep trigger to do something other than just numbers, right? Like you don't like don't give the deep keyword, but something along the Nautilus line of win your deep blank.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Like what about like 4/4 that can attack for 3 and win your deep it can attack or something. Something along those lines.
Yeah, totally in the realm of what we want. I mean, I also feel like because of how the sea monster deck ends up working, like Lore of the Depths doesn't see play. So if you expand this out, you give more room to things like that.
Did I somehow forget yet another fairly decent card draw spell in this region? There's so much card draw in this region.
There really is.
But the thing is, like, Lore of the Depths is pretty narrow card draw, but it should be a lot
it's
better
good
than
in the deck
is.
it's in.
Yeah. Well, it's not. I don't even think it's
really
in the sea monsters list.
I've seen it, but maybe it's just
I've
seen different decks that you have.
When I built it, I played it. But like the main sea monsters deck doesn't run this, and again, the reason for that is that that's not like the early game stuff that the sea monsters deck is trying to do isn't sea monsters. So casting a Lore from the Depths ends up being kind of a useless play, because you don't necessarily want to draw your sea monsters. You want to toss them, play Nautilus, and put them back in your deck so you don't mill out. Drawing them is kind of a trap.
That's fair.
So that's again why giving them.
I mean, we've got Jaw Hunters, which is a play that gets you a sea monster and does something on curve. But I guess we just want more of that.
Yeah.
Always give me more.
Yeah. Jaw Hunters is technically a draw card as well. Jaw Hunters does go in the deck though, because that card
does stuff on curve.
Yeah, and making a sea monster isn't taking one from your deck. Is the other important distinction. Like if Jaw Hunters was draw one of your sea monsters, it wouldn't be as good.
I see your point. Well, it would get you deep faster.
It would, but you don't need that help more than, again, like it's really weird. Like again, that's sort of why that deck's in a weird spot and why it's still doing experimentation. And I guess really what it would have been is if, they do or did print more support for it, the deck would have been a lot more linear and just been like, cool, this is what you're playing. I guess we do kind of have a fun sort of like, hey, how does this deck work figure out period.
That's fair. And
that they did do a really good job with.
I think it's probably worth our time to spend some time looking at other regions and seeing what we can do with the early game for the Sea Monsters deck. Right? Maybe it's. Exactly. I mean, the lazy answer is going to be put in 3 Elise, 3 Vile Feast, and 3 Brood Awakening. What is that card called? That's 5-drop spell.
I think it's like Brood Awakening or something.
Well, what's being built for it right now is you're using all of the your early game right now is the toss cards. It's Dredgers, Toad, the Lifesteal one that tosses. So like those are all of your things that are pushing you deep. But I guess part of the thing of that is like that you're playing like the deep toss synergies together, and that's about it. Like, and that's again why the sea monsters are just there to be like your finish out. Like they're trying to be your slam a Nautilus, slam all your sea monsters, attack while your opponent doesn't expect it, sort of, finish the game out. So, again, like, it's not that there isn't anything there, it's just I kind of would have liked a bit more flavorful sea monster thing going on in the future. And I think there's room for, growth in the sea monster package if they add to Bilgewater later.
There's always a bigger fish.
Exactly.
Nice. Alright, so I think that about closes that up, which is perfect because it gives me just enough time to have built my deck. It's really kind of great that we decided to rag on Mind Meld so much because I really had no idea what I was going to be doing for my meme. So we found it. Here it is. This is a deck. Let me see if I can actually save it really quickly. Well, I can't. Alright, so this is a Mind Meld deck featuring 2 one-cost champions, Fizz and Teemo. And basically, you're just dumping out everything you got as fast as possible. We have, I think, 9 1-drops. We have 15 1-drop spells. 9 of them are creatures. I guess technically 12 of them are creatures because we have 3 Jury Rig, 3 Rummage, 3 Shell Shockers. And we're using all the attuned creatures to make sure you can just get all that spell mana back as fast as possible. Our 2-drops include Scrap Dash Assembly to make more Scrap Scuttlers to get creatures while casting spells. We have Coral Creature, which gives you a free 1-cost spell. Make It Rain, because come on. We got Flash of Brilliance, because you're just going to discard those to get excited. And then we have Bubble Bear to top out our curve. Because he's an elusive, he's a 0/6, he can attune you as well. And that's the deck, you know. We don't have anything over 3 mana, except for, of course, Mind Meld, which is at the top of the list. So yeah, that's the list. I think it doesn't have legs, but I really want to try it because I'm curious.
I mean,
what's you guys' thoughts?
So my initial thought was that you were going to go Ionia with it because you can get more spells.
And more
I
cards.
tried that. Yeah, I tried that. The problem that I had... Yeah, the problem that I have with that is that I couldn't, like, because yes, deep meditation, retrieval, that stuff is good. I don't know. I mean, I think it's between PNZ and Ionia.
Okay, so start of the next time we stream, I'm gonna build a Mind Meld deck. You're gonna build a Mind Meld deck, and we're gonna see whose mind we're gonna meld our minds.
Yeah.
See
There we go.
Mind Meld deck wins.
We're mind melding the deck build.
Mind
meld deck build mind meld deck build mind meld.
Yep.
There it is.
The big brain off 2020.
Heck yeah. All right. But yeah,
great.
that's our meme. Our meme is figure out how to make mind meld work and get it to, I don't know, like high gold. I think it's about as far as you can get, if I had to guess.
I mean, we owe them after we accidentally made a real deck.
Yeah, true.
We have to take this meme to the ladder and see what happens.
Straight to Wood 5.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's gonna do it. Probably. I feel like we covered a lot of stuff. We didn't, we didn't go too crazy. Mind meme. There it is. All right.
Mind Meme 2020.
Mind meme 2020. We'll be putting out a time where we're gonna stream these Mind Meld decks. But anyways, for Runeterra, I've been Grandmaster Dan.
I've been Adam Edelman Munoz.
And I'm Stan Jarzewski.
And we'll still be those people next time, and we'll see you then.